The House committee that says former President Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election and prevent the transfer of power is scheduled to have 3 more public hearings next week. On Monday, the panel will look into how Trump and his advisors knew he lost the race for the White House, but still took part in a massive effort to spread bogus information. Former President Trump has called the committee members political hacks and once again made false claims about the integrity of the election. And joining me now to talk more about the impact of the House committee's findings is North Central College professor, political science Dr. Stephen Maynard Caliendo. Now, Stephen, when we were talking before the hearing, I know you were anticipating what was going to come out here. How effective do you think the presentation was, and what did you come away with learning the most?
I think the effectiveness probably depends on what was intended. We know that the idea of getting it in prime time was to get as many people watching as possible and to tell a story about not only what we knew happened, remind us what happened on January 6, 2021, but also to tell us some things that we didn't know. And really, it was a preview. Even though it was 2 hours long, it was a preview. We did have some live witnesses and we had some never before seen footage, but it was very much a roadmap of what the committee intends to show, as you mentioned, over the next week or so.
And to tell that story, we heard some pretty intimate testimony from people who were very close to Donald Trump, in fact, members of his own family. Ivanka Trump came out and said that she respected the opinion of former Attorney General Bill Barr, who said that he used colorful language to say that there was no fraud in all of this. How damaging do you think that was to hear from Trump's own daughter saying that this was bogus?
Yeah. Clearly, part of the strategy for this attempt and last night was to distance the president even from his closest allies. The narrative was set out that he has such an unusual disregard for the Constitution, that this isn't about party, and this isn't even about support for President Trump. Even people that supported him right up until the end stopped supporting him that day. He was the only one left. That was the story that Liz Cheney in particular was trying to tell last night, and I think will unfold over the next week. And that's important because, as she mentioned, they're hoping that more Republicans will stop supporting President Trump, stop repeating the big lie, and come to terms with what their actions were on January 6th.
You heard from the rioters who were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." You heard the president say, "Hey, maybe they're onto something there." How do you think the former vice president came out in all of this?
I think we're going to hear more from people close to Mike Pence throughout the next week. And there's no question that Mike Pence, there was a moment right in between when the election happened and what happened on January 6th, where Mike Pence steadied himself and decided, this is when I have to break with the president. And I think that story became clearer yesterday. From what I'm understanding in terms of some of the depositions that were taken from this committee, there's a series of text messages and other interviews that were done that will further offer evidence to that end, that Vice President Pence broke away, and that lots of folks were encouraging the president and those closest to him to encourage folks to stop.
And you heard a lot about that. That really highlights this discussion about how fragile American democracy is. And as Americans, we like to highlight our strength. And it's hard to maybe think about how fragile it is. Do you think that came out of this? And do Americans understand how fragile it actually is?
I do, and I think going back to what I mentioned a moment ago, where Liz Cheney's strategy of telling her partisans, other Republicans, you don't have to stay with this guy. Do you need evidence? Look what happened on January 6th. Look what happened in the states where the president was putting pressure on to lie. They didn't lie. They didn't make up, they didn't fabricate votes. They did what was right. And Liz Cheney is saying to Republicans in the House and Republicans all across the country, you too can do what is right. You do not have to stay with this president. You can be a Republican and not support him. Look at what all these good people did on January 6th and in the weeks before and after.
Dr. Stephen Maynard Caliendo with North Central College. I know you'll be watching again next week. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
You too.